Here's how to work a short row heel on a sock. I just leave the front of the leg stitches on a cord. You can put them on waste yarn or whatever you want to deal with them. We're going to work the heel across the back of the leg stitches, and this is 2 more stitches than half. And you can do it over approximately half, or if you need a little bit deeper heel, a few more than half, that's fine too. So in order to work this heel, it uses wrap and turn. So I need to knit just to the last stitch of the end here, and I will wrap and turn the very last stitch. So when I get to the end, I'll just perform a standard wrap and turn. And in order to do that, I leave my yarn at the back, I slip this stitch, bring the yarn to the front, and slip the stitch back, and then bring the yarn back round. And I've sort of wrapped the yarn around that slipped stitch. And now I need to turn, so that was the wrap part, and this is the turn part. So now every time I work a wrong side row, I'm basically going to mirror what I did on the right side. So in this case, I knit to the last stitch on the first row, and now I'm going to purl to the last stitch on the second row on the wrong side. And when I get there, I'll perform the wrap and turn, but this time wrong side row wrap and turn. So here's my last stitch, and I'll leave my yarn in the front, just like I was going to purl it, but slip it as if to purl. Then bring the yarn to the back and slip it back and bring the yarn round. So now I've wrapped that stitch, and then the turn part, it's wrap and turn. Now I'm back to a right side row, and I have this one stitch that hasn't been worked. It was just wrapped, slipped and wrapped. And now I need to knit until I get to the stitch right before the stitch that I wrapped last time. And I will wrap the stitch before. So this whole process is we're going to work only part of the rows each time until we get to the stitch that's right before the one that was wrapped. And you can really see this visually once you get yarn going away. Okay, once you get the hang of it. So I'm knitting until I get to the second to the last stitch and the stitch that was wrapped. So the stitch before the wrapped stitch. So that one is the wrapped one. And then I have the stitch right before it is the one that needs to be wrapped now. So I'm going to slip, bring the yarn to the front, slip it back, bring the yarn to the back. Now it's been wrapped, and we have 2 stitches that have been wrapped. And now I'm going to turn back to the wrong side. And I'll do the same thing going the opposite direction to the purl side. The last stitch of this row was wrapped last time. So this time I'll wrap the second to last stitch. Getting close. So I can see that stitch was wrapped before, and this is the one right before it. So I'm going to keep my yarn in the front, slip that stitch, bring the yarn to the back, oops, between the needles, and slip the stitch back to the left-hand needle and bring the yarn around to the front. And now that was the wrap, this is the turn. So I'm going to perform that same action, working all the way to the last stitch that was wrapped, and doing the wrap and turn on the stitch before it until I have some stitches, just a few stitches left that haven't been worked in the middle. And that's probably going to be 11 or 13 stitches. It's like a third sort of the stitches that are in the middle there. And once I do that, then I do the next part where we go back and forth. So I'll do that and then I'll come back to this. So I'm at the middle of the heel now, and all the stitches that need to be have been wrapped on either side. And I have some unwrapped stitches in the center. In this case, it's 13. So I need to knit to the next wrapped stitch. And then I'm going to knit the wrap and the stitch together. So I insert into the wrap, and then I insert into the stitch, and I bring the needle through, and that is my completion of that stitch. And then I need to wrap the next stitch again. So this stitch is going to have a double wrap. So I slip, bring the yarn forward, put the stitch back, and bring the yarn to the back. Now this stitch has been wrapped twice. And we'll deal with that when we come back the other way. So now I turn, that was the wrap part, here's the turn part, and I'm going to purl to the next wrapped stitch. And then I'll need to purl the wrapped stitch together with its wrap. Purling the stitch together with its wrap is a little trickier. But here's how I do it. So I insert into the wrap from the back, and the wrap, insert into the back, and then I insert into the stitch. And I usually just push them both onto the right-hand needle and then back onto the left-hand needle together so that they're easier to work with. And then I purl those two together. Then I need to wrap the next stitch and turn, and do the same when I get to the other side. So I'm going a little bit further every time and wrapping each wrapped stitch a second time. So they'll all end up sort of being double wrapped, and then we'll work those double wraps in the next part. I need to knit to the next wrapped stitch. So that's across the center of the heel stitches. And the one that I worked together with its wrap in the first place. Now I've come to a stitch that's double wrapped here. You can see one wrap and two wraps. Now I need to work this stitch together with both wraps. So I insert into both wraps, insert into the knit stitch, and then I'm going to draw the yarn through and let that off. So now I've worked both wraps together with their stitch, and I need to wrap the next stitch and turn. We'll do the same thing going back the other way, and when we get to the double wrapped stitch on the purl side, we'll need to purl together the wraps with their stitch. So here's the double wrapped stitch, and we have one wrap, we have two wraps. So now I need to insert behind both wraps. So into the back of both, insert into that stitch, and then I do like to push them all to the right-hand needle and then all to the left-hand needle. That just makes it easier to purl them all together. So it's sort of like a purl 3 together almost. And then I slip that off and give it a nice little tug, and then wrap the following stitch, turn. Here's another view of knitting the double wrapped stitch together with its wraps. So there's one wrap and two wraps, and insert into both of those, then insert into the knit stitch, and bring the yarn through all of that whole situation and push that off. And then I wrap and turn the next stitch so that that one also has a double wrap. And here's another view of working the double wrapped purl together with its wraps. So I need to come from behind and insert both wraps into the needle. And then I slip the stitch itself onto the right-hand needle. Put the whole thing back onto the left-hand needle, and then purl it all together. And wrap and turn the next one. So we're creating this little pocket here is starting to happen. I've come to the final stitch on the right side row that has not been worked. So it has the double wraps, and it's time to work those together. And I have the mirror image on the other side. And so the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to, work those stitches together, or those wraps together with that stitch. And I need to wrap one more stitch to kind of join this all together to avoid holes for the most part. So in order to do that, I just like to take this final stitch, or the first stitch of the front of the leg, and I just squeeze the cord so that I can get that stitch up onto my left-hand needle. And then that's the stitch that I'll wrap to finish this section. And I'll need to do the same thing when I get to the other end. So that was my wrap, and here's my turn. So I'll do the same thing on the wrong side as well. So I'm going to purl to that, and then I'll show you what it looks like on the other side. Here's my final purl stitch, and I'm on the wrong side. So I need to work the wraps together with the stitch, and one wrap is kind of down here, and the other wrap is up here. So I need to go from the back of both of those wraps and then into the purl stitch. And again, I'm going to move them to the right-hand needle and then back to the left-hand needle, and then work the whole thing together without splitting the stitch. So there, I've finished that final stitch. This is kind of interesting what it looks like on the inside. But now I need to wrap one more stitch, so I am going to squeeze the cord so that I can get that stitch from the front of the leg up onto my left-hand needle here. And then I'll wrap, and slip that stitch back. So now I'm going back the other direction, and from here on out, I'll be working in the round again. So I have my little heel, and that's what it looks like on this side. That's what it looks like on that side. So now I need to knit until I get to that wrapped stitch, and then I'm going to keep going all the way around to reestablish this in the round. Here's that final wrapped stitch that I took from the front of the leg. So I'm going to work that stitch together with its wrap. And now I'm ready to work the sock in the round again. So I will just go ahead and start going back in the round and knitting across the front of, now it's the instep, so this is the foot now that we've completed the heel. This is the final wrapped stitch that I had worked on the wrong side. So in order to work this one, I like to do it a little bit differently, that it makes it look a little bit more neat. So I'll just slip this off, and then it's kind of just hanging out there. I need it to be separated from its wrap because I want to work a left-leaning decrease, like an SSK between the two of them. So this part's a little stressful, but it works out. So I'm just going to gently pull the stitch out and then grab the wrap there. So the wrap was right there. It's a bit tight, but then I'm going to put it on the left needle and put the stitch back onto the left needle. Just make sure they're not falling off. Now I have the stitch, I have the wrap, and then I'm going to SSK those two together. So I'm going to knit a couple more stitches and then I'll show you what that looks like. And that stitch ended up, there we go, being pretty elongated. So I think that when I have worked a few more rows, I'll probably go back and pull on its neighboring stitches a little bit to bring it a little bit tighter. And at the end, if this hole stays there, I can also use a little bit of waste yarn to just, on the wrong side, I'll just work a little duplicate stitch to close that hole up. But that's it. That's the finished heel. So we've done our full short row heel, and now I'm back to working in the round. And